So I want to introduce Tamara Lynne. She'll talk a little about herself and share a really personal story about housing affordability.
Thank you, Vivian, and everyone who's helped organize this. So I'm Tamara Lynne. I'm a theater artist, and I'm a director and founder of a theater organization called Living Stages, and we are located in Montevilla, where I currently live. The theater work that we do, I typically work with marginalized communities, including a lot of communities that are struggling with homelessness and have experienced transitional housing. So housing is a really important issue to me because of my work. And it's also a really important issue to me as a working artist because the issue of affordable housing has been a real challenge over the past 5 years. And that's a story that I've been invited to share with you this evening. To know a little bit about being a working artist, it often is full-time work and then working additional jobs as well. And it can be 8, 12, or 20 hours writing a grant. It's not paid, and then of course, hoping you get funded and then maybe getting partially funded. So needless to say, it's sort of an unstable income where many months maybe without work or without income, and other times where things look pretty lush. And this makes it challenging to find rental housing. And just a little bit of an idea, after 10 years of work, working on my craft, it might be the equivalent of being minimum wage for 40 hours a week. But in 2010, I realized that I lived 7 times in 10 years, from northeast to southeast to outer southeast, and that had taken a real toll on me. And at that point, buying did not seem like an option with the current housing situation. And I was stunned to see what it would cost me to buy a rental or to rent an apartment. So at this point, I had heard about an artist development out on 82nd called +5, and I put an application in. It was a new thing. I didn't know what to expect, but 6 months later, I was approved, and I was one of the first people to walk through those doors and find a place to live that I could afford. It was within my income range. It was tiny, but it worked, and it had a shared kitchen, and it was actually really perfect for me. Now, whatever you've heard about +5 is probably true, both good and bad. But despite the challenges, this development was really essential to my development as an artist and the establishment of Living Stages Theater as an arts organization. Because when people don't have stable, affordable place to set down roots, it's really difficult to dream, plan, or vision any sort of creative possibility for their lives. And when artists don't have stable, affordable places to live, it's really hard to create art in a meaningful way. And not only is affordable housing that's connected to community essential for individual human beings, it's also essential for the creative life of communities. So this was a great situation for me, and very quickly the challenges emerged. And so some of them include the rent doubling in my 4 years there. So other challenges about that is that, when the residents tried to make a change, there were incidences of retaliation that came with things like no-cause evictions, which are perfectly legal, and rent increases that were pretty unmanageable, also completely legal. So some of the lessons, we have a statewide ban on rent control, so there's nothing stopping landlords from raising the rent. And no-cause evictions give landlords a lot of power in terms of who gets housing and who doesn't. And there's also no significant legal protection against things like retaliation. Just because low-income or affordable housing is so low, it's just kind of like pocket change to a developer, and often not enough for an attorney to be worth their time. So I knew I needed to look elsewhere in that situation. So the next option I began looking at was the all-powerful Craigslist, and discovered with some horror that studio apartments are really up at about $1,000 right now, or a little bit less than that. So more than a third of my income. I began searching every single day, usually about 3 times a day, first thing in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. Nothing looked like I could afford it. And I searched for about a year. And this last February, I found something posted that piqued my interest, and it was a downtown apartment that was income restricted, under $500, and very small, but interesting to me. So I called. I was surprised to get an answer. The manager was surprised and said, "Hey, look, here's the deal. You have to make less than this." And I said, "That's great." I make less than that. And he was surprised because I don't know why, because there are a lot of us who make less than this. And I went and I actually really fell in love with this apartment and put my application in. Ultimately, the answer I got is it doesn't actually really matter. You're not really the demographic we're looking for. But I was offered a number of other apartments I could apply for that were several $100s more that I would qualify for. So my question has been, why would you rent me an apartment that I can't afford, that I qualify for, when there's an affordable one that you're denying me? So when I finally got the last rejection, again, I went back to Craigslist and began looking. I didn't feel that affordable, income-restricted housing would be a good match, given that information, and started looking on the general market. And by now, I pretty much knew the vacancies. I pretty much knew the property management companies. I knew the restrictions and many that I wouldn't qualify for. And I found a posting that had been put up an hour before, and it looked legitimate. It was where I was looking for. It was a company I'd actually rented with about 15 years before, so I knew it was legit. I called 5 times, I called actually 3 times, not 5 times. 3 times, no answer. Got online, filled out the application. This is all within about 2 hours. Hadn't gotten any response. Called their admin line, asked them how I could possibly pay to get in line for this apartment. And to my surprise, it was approved the next day for this apartment. And it was one that is about 50% of my income at this point. And yet I felt like I won the lottery somehow, that this was like something I needed to grab onto, that if I didn't take this, I did not know if I would ever be able to move from where I was, and my lease was running out. So the catch was that the tenant wasn't ready to show the apartment, and I needed to agree and pay the deposit before I saw the apartment. And they wouldn't hold it another 48 hours for me to see it. And they assured me that there would be somebody, if I gave up my spot, who would take this apartment sight unseen at its current, in the range of unreasonable, it was low, a low unreasonable rate. So I felt like I didn't have a choice. It felt like this was the only option I had. So I paid this amount, signed for the apartment with a 12-month lease, and sight unseen. I haven't moved in yet. So I wish this had a happy ending. It did in some sense. I found a place, I got approved, I'm still waiting to move in. But here's the situation. I'm paying 50%, just about, of my income on an apartment, rented sight unseen. And I have concerns about whether it's going to be a healthy place for me to live as an old building, and as somebody that's had health issues relating to mold and mildew in the past. I don't know what the condition is going to be. I do think that for any kind of happy ending of this particular story would actually require a collective ending rather than an individual one. That it's about people in Portland beginning to come together and decide what kind of housing policies are good for our community, what supports members of our community staying here, working people, artists, other marginalized communities, and that limit the power of big developers and other forces that are using our resources, our community resources in our city as tools for investment and profit rather than places for Portland residents to live. work. So I'm hoping that if my story can in some way contribute to this effort of people coming together, that's what I'm hoping for. And if you know anything about the kind of theater that I do and that Living Stages does, the ending is always up to us, up to the community. Thank you.